The white balance of your image is one of, if not the very most important steps that you need to take in post-processing if you aim to create compelling images that also look realistic. Without a neutral white balance, you're going to spend hours making adjustments to your image and it just simply won't look right. I personally find that when I get stuck on an image for hours, oftentimes it's the white balance that ultimately needs to be changed to get the photo to a place that I'm happy with. My name is Austin James Jackson, and in today's video, I'm going to show you guys a trick to perfectly adjusting the white balance every time. Now, while you can manually adjust the white balance of your image in the field using your camera's settings, I usually recommend using auto white balance and then correcting that white balance in post-processing, which I'm going to show you how to do today. This tutorial is going to take place in Lightroom, but all the skills and techniques that I'm about to show you do translate very well to other photo editors. Now, I realized this powerful technique last week when I was editing this image here. You can see when you look at it, it kind of looks like a black and white, but it's not. There is actually some color in there. Now, essentially what's going on is we've got these trees and this snow is blowing. It's like a total whiteout conditions. It was kind of this minimalist scene that I really liked these trees. Now, as I was editing this, I was liking it, but I was wanting the photo to take on a little cooler feel. But as I just dragged this slider to the left, it was starting to get too cool. And it was just really hard for me to tell where the white balance should stand. And I felt like it didn't quite look right. As I zoom into the trees, it looks pretty dark. Everything looks fine, but it was just kind of lacking a little bit of punch. So what I did is I dragged the vibrance and the saturation all the way up. Now you can see the white balance of my photo is definitely off here. This snowy scene should have a cool white balance. It shouldn't really be magenta. The tint should be pretty much neutral. So I dragged the vibrance and the saturation up. All of a sudden I realized it's not looking right. So I want to drag this tint down till I get rid of that magenta cast. And I don't want it to be green cast either. I just want it somewhere in the middle. If you're adjusting this and you're finding that the tint is moving too quickly, simply click on the box and then use your computer's arrow keys. I just want to get this in a neutral spot, which I think is between 7 and 8. Let's go with 8 for this. And same thing with the temperature and the tint. We definitely don't want it to be too warm, but we could potentially have it be a little bit cooler. But let's just make it neutral for now. Probably about right there is about neutral, maybe just a little bit more. There, let's go about right there. So then I zeroed these sliders back out. Now it's looking a little bit better, but I am actually going to cool it down a little bit more now that I'm looking at this. Somewhere about in there. So that's how I go about balancing or making the white balance on this image. Now this is obviously a very simple example. Let's move on to a little bit more complicated example that might be hard for people to dial in the white balance. Now as you look at this photo, you might think the white balance looks fine. I personally think that it's a little bit off. Everything is just a little bit magenta toned. But in order to tell a little bit better, let's raise the vibrance and the saturation. And for this photo, since there's already a lot of color, we probably don't want to go to plus 100. Let's just raise it up to about there. You can see everything is orange or magenta toned. I kind of want something in there to be neutral. It's just going to look a little bit better if something's neutral. So again, let's throw some green back into the image. You can see as I adjust this how quickly it starts to pull the colors out. Now this is starting to look more neutral down here in terms of the tint. The temperature still needs to be adjusted, but the tint is looking a little more neutral. It's not magenta, it's not green, it's kind of right in the middle. Now, same thing here. Now, because we're shooting a slot canyon, keep in mind it should be a little bit warm. We don't want to totally get rid of all of the orangish color, but we can neutralize a little bit. I want to stay away from these kind of shadows being bluish purple, but I'm fine to drop the temperature just a little bit. About right there is good. I know this is still really orange back here. That's fine because sunlight's hitting it. You can see up in here, it's a little bit more neutral toned. So we'll zero these sliders back out again. And then we'll go about editing our photo as usual. We'll bring up the vibrance, bring up the saturation. So for me, this looks a lot more neutral. You can see how this technique can work with a variety of different photos. Now, a lot of you guys, landscape photographers out there, You guys are probably shooting scenes like this. This technique works the same for something like this. Again, we're looking for something to be neutral. For in this scene, we probably want the grasses to be a little neutral. Now with a scene like this, a lot of photographers will make the mistake of trying to make the sky look better than it is. So they'll just drag this and warm it up. And oh my gosh, look, the sunset just keeps getting better to about right there. And oh man, look at how nice that sunset looks. But everything else just looks terrible now. It doesn't look realistic. So to avoid doing that, you're going to use the same technique. So bring up the vibrance, bring up the saturation, and then you're just going to balance things out. Now, generally, you don't want to look at like the sunlight to balance the white balance. What I like to do is look at something that's not catching light, something in the shadows, like the grass over here. So let's neutralize this grass. We'll warm it up just a little bit. And I don't know, yeah, see, we don't want to go too green with it. We don't want to go too purple with it. We want to be about in the middle. About right there looks good to me. Now, same thing. Let's zero out the vibrance, zero out the saturation. I think that is looking a lot better, a lot more neutral. Now we can continue editing this as usual by bringing this up. And this is obviously too much saturation, but look at how much more neutral the image looks. We've got warm sky, cool shadows, and then we've got kind of neutral in the foreground here when it comes to the grass. So this technique works for a variety of different kinds of photos, but it's a technique that I would really recommend if you're struggling with the white balance. As I mentioned before, the white balance is so important to getting that image to look just perfect. Where you want to be looking is something that's not catching light. Look in the shadows or in those kind of mid-tones of your photos. That's how you're going to be able to dial in the white balance. Of course, you can go in and make some color adjustments after the fact. Later on, you can use those HSL sliders, but getting that white balance correct is really the first post-processing step you should be taking. And it's not a linear process as you're editing your photos. Go back, adjust that white balance frequently and often in order to really make sure that the white balance looks just right. You really want to make sure that white balance is dialed in, because without having the white balance dialed in, your edit is just never going to look how you want. So hopefully that'll help you guys. Thank you so much for checking out this week's video. I really hope it was helpful for you. If it was, let me know down below in the comments, or if you have a way that you like to dial in the white balance yourself, I would love to hear it. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me to continue to grow, to provide these free videos for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is Austin James Jackson, and we'll see you guys next time.